Hello.
Hello, hey everyone. Welcome to Colorisma. This wouldn't be an episode of Colorisma without some technical difficulties. So today I'm joined by Alicia Vogel. I said that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. I was making sure because in my head I was like saying it wrong and I was like, no, not that one. The other one. The other way to say it. But I'm glad I got it. But yeah, we were a little late just due to sound issues, but I think we got it all worked out now. So yeah, I'm excited to get to chat with you today.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, you guys missed a 30-minute sound test. It was awesome. It was great.
Oh yeah. And we tried to like start early and get it all out of the way, and then we scrambled until the very last minute. So
hmm
that's always fun.
hmm
But yeah, so today we're chatting and we're talking about your creative journey, anything and everything you want to share dealing with that. I guess to start off, we'll just do a easy lob. Oh, good, and we are heard. So
Yay.
yes, perfect. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and start with what led you on the path to being an artist in the first place.
Birth. I think I was always making stuff. I was always drawing. I couldn't sit still. I always had to make something or draw something.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried fighting it growing up because I knew it was a hard lifestyle or it
Yeah.
was a hard career to go into. So I made a lot of excuses beforehand, but I just couldn't avoid it. It was just where all my passion and talents led me.
Mm-hmm. And what's kind of the thing that you're drawn to the most in all the art? I mean, I know the answer, but for our viewers watching.
You can probably see it in the background too. It's horses. I was always into. I was a horse crazy girl, and I never grew out of it. So, horses and dinosaurs. Your normal passions.
Of course, 100%.
I couldn't have one, and drawing and art, making a thing is kind of like having it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so or understanding it. It's
Yeah,
like part
exactly.
part of the love of it, and that's you know. So everything that I love, I love to draw or sculpt or make in some form or fashion.
Mm-hmm. I completely understand that. In my web comic, I have an angry gray mare, and she lives in my head, but like when I put
hmm
her out on the page, it feels like she really exists. So,
I've had that same experience with both of the comics that I've worked on in the past. I worked on two
mm-hmm.
comics, not equine related. One was Aikido Owl, which was about an armadillo running an internet cafe,
Aw.
and the other one is Heretic, which is or Hiretic. Even I mispronounced the name. Is a play on hieroglyphics and heretic, the word, but it's about Egyptian gods working crappy day jobs in Austin,
Nice.
and so much of so much of the characters, you draw them over and over, and they just become real to you, and then they're
Mm-hmm.
almost second nature. Like you could just draw them in your sleep because they're that
Yeah.
much of a part of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. All that said, what was like the first kind of meaningful experience with art? Maybe something that sort of like obviously you were drawing as a kid and everything, but is there anything like one experience in particular that really was like cemented it for you that yeah, no, this is unavoidable. I'm definitely gonna I'm just gonna bite the bullet and do it.
Mhm. That's a really tough question because I flopped around so much, and even in college, even when I was taking art classes, I was, busy trying to, figure out what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up working at UT for 15 years in charge of the computer labs. I've, got a good IT job,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't until I I've always kept I always kept up art on the side,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until I went to the illustration master class at
Yeah.
workshop in
IMC.
the IMC. Yeah, it wasn't until there that I was like, oh, what am I doing with my life? I came back a changed woman after that workshop. I mean, it was so
Yeah.
intense, and I was around people that were, like me, artists, creatives. I've always been around scientists and faculty, academia. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't around enough creatives, so when I was around them, I was like, oh wait, this is how life is supposed to be.
Right.
And so I came back from the IMC, and within a week, I don't recommend this, but I quit my job. Now, normally, what a normal
Nice.
person would do would be to, plan and go, okay, I'll save this, make sure I have this much amount of money and blah blah blah. Blah. But
Right.
I was so jazzed, and I was also, knew I needed the change because life's
Mm-hmm.
short.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I quit. Was shocked by coworkers because they were completely ignorant, or not completely ignorant, but they kind of tolerated my artist side,
Yeah.
but they didn't really understand it. So, like I said, they were shocked. And then I went off and started, being full time artist, and it,
Mm-hmm.
it was great because suddenly I had a social life. I mean,
Yeah.
I found a local sketch group, and I started,
Oh wow.
talking to other artists, and I was like, oh, this is how this works. This life thing.
Right. Right. And not. It's not just. What is it? They say. Living to work,
Yeah,
as
exactly, and that's
opposed
what
to
it
working to
became.
live. Yeah.
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 Hmm.
How long ago was that
That
experience? The IMC.
it was 2013, so pretty
Okay.
recent. Yeah, so this was a pretty, a late change. The joke that I'm going to make a horse joke. Everyone sit down. They say that Andalusian horses are slow to mature. I think that's my problem. Is that I'm
You're part Andalusian. I
part.
see. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
It's
no.
also
I.
explains the nose too. So.
But yeah, so it's actually been a minute. I just was thinking earlier as I was having computer issues that my computer
Hmm.
was I got it in 2012, and I kept saying to people that it's 8 years old, it's 8 years old, and then I had to stop and think and go, no, now it's 9 years old. That's been a minute.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
technology wise. So
Hmm.
2013, you've been working as a pro artist. That's pretty awesome,
Hmm.
and gives you a bit of experience now to be able to talk on it.
Hmm. Yeah, I've been doing mostly. I mean, for besides personal work and personal
Hmm.
projects, I've been doing a lot of work for gaming, for tabletop games, doing
Oh,
artwork for
cool.
them. Yeah. Uh, see, Pelgrane in particular is,
Hmm.
I've done some artwork for them, and I've also been part of the. Sep- try to think how to word it. I had it perfectly rehearsed earlier, but anyway. But anyway, I like working with independent gamers. They run
Right.
Kickstarters,
Uh-huh.
not just Kickstarters. Anyway, and they're a joy to work with because they're so really into the game and into the
Yeah.
industry, and I can their passion and my passion at the same time. We're both like, yeah, let's make this thing.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
not so jaded when
hmm.
you get, or just when you're it's weird. I've worked for a few AAA studios, gaming studios, video games, and it, it's all so segmented and fragmented.
Hmm.
This department is
Yeah.
here, that department is there, never the two shall meet. You talk through
Hmm.
email only. You don't really even know who the other departments are, anything like that. But when you get in those smaller studios where it's still just,
Hmm.
a few people, like definitely less than a dozen people, and everybody kind of does a little bit of everything. It's a lot of work, but
Hmm.
the passion is there, compared to, I think, in the bigger studios where it feels more just like work.
Right.
So I can
It's a
understand.
there's definite pros and cons because the big studios, they have their act together as far as, legal. You don't need to handhold, pricing and hopefully
Mm.
and contracts, all that, and the
Yeah, they have
pay is
that.
usually good. So the sometimes having that professional job is just like, oh, good, I just do the
Right,
thing. Why am I doing
right.
this? Yeah, I'm doing this.
It can
Especially,
definitely it can be a lot
hmm
with the independent streak of just trying to
hmm
manage everything yourself. You have to be your own marketing,
hmm
business,
right.
legal, art, and the art department all in one. So
hmm
it's a lot.
But but working with independent people brings you that, that more personal touch, and
Hmm.
that is more, as you were saying, more, we're in this together. Let's, get this get this cool thing out.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
and I and I don't mind helping people with the business end, or and
Hmm.
educating, how to hire an artist, because hiring an artist is such a weird thing. I mean, it's not like, you call your sink breaks, you get to call the plumber,
Right.
and with an artist, it's like, well,
How does all
what
this
do I
work?
do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I've got you. Now what? I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a different experience on the employer side compared to like the more straightforward of like, I have this problem, fix it. It's a
hmm
lot more back and forth, and without, especially if they don't have an actual art director and you're
hmm
kind of designing by committee, if you've ever been in that experience.
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, Actually, didn't happen. This didn't happen actually in an art job. This was when I was doing some web design work,
Hmm.
and a supervisor asked me, "Could you redo this, but use the Dallas Cowboy colors?" And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, the requests are endless and always interesting. They At least they didn't tell you to just make it look cooler.
Right. Oh, that's awesome.
Could you make it like, I don't know, crisper or more clean, whatever that means, like
Let's
just
see.
really clean it up, whatever that
Okay.
means. Just the
Me too.
ambiguity of those phrases that they like to use.
Right.
Graphic design is not one that I envy. That's one that I've experimented with in the past with trying to work in, and just I hear those kind of stories a lot. Like, I remember there's a
hmm
blog back in the day where they basically
hmm
just shared those kind of stories and horror stories from that whole line of working. But you're doing more of the illustration now, right? Or are you moving
Yeah.
on to something else?
Oh no. I doing illustration. Yeah, I don't. Occasionally I'll take a graphic design thing if it feels like it's in my wheelhouse, but definitely a different. It's a different thing than illustration. Illustration
Mm-hmm.
is, where my heart is at. Is, I got to paint things. I got to make a story. I have to, you know share, share all the stuff in my head, and get
Right.
that out, get that out into the world.
Is there anything in particular that you find like the most exciting with your art? Like your one true passion that you're just like, okay, this everything has to revolve around this. It sounds
hmm
like you have some passion for like mythology and
hmm
of course horses, but
Right. Well, I've been when I entered the art world. I mean, professionally, I was working on this, the whole sci-fi fantasy type genre, but I found that was too broad in terms of
mm-hmm.
standing out. That whole finding your voice. What makes you you. And I
Mm-hmm.
suppressed the horse thing. I have this theme of suppression. I'm gonna have to rewatch this.
You'll take
Well,
notes later.
yeah, right, exactly. Great, that was therapy. Okay, but
We do what we can here at Colorsman, free therapy, whatever you need here. It's fine. It's all good.
yeah. Well, the horse girl thing, that stigma. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
they pretty much tried to beat it out of you in college, and they were almost successful. But when I entered the sci-fi fantasy world, and I was looking to find what made me unique, was it just always came back to being able to do horses. I found out that most artists find them very hard to do, and
Can't relate to that.
frustrating. You're right. Well, they are, but I love it. I like tackling it. And but if I
Right.
talk to a friend of mine in the sketch group, he's always like, "Oh, the anatomy. I just don't get. You know, how does any of this work?
Have you seen
And
the threads online where they show like the how to like how I'm drawing a horse and it just looks like a stick figure or something and they're like that's it and no one it doesn't seem like anyone in the thread can can do it like without reference I mean
right, yeah. No, I haven't seen that. I need to look because
it's
I
pretty
love that
great.
stuff. I mean, I always like that, and I always like watching animation goofs. With some low budget video games
Mm-hmm.
or games that they had to where it's like the third priority, and you sit there and you see the horse going like this.
Ooh, what
Yep.
gate is that? The
I-
springy gate. That's what it
yeah,
is.
right.
Yeah, what the one of the studios I worked for, the one of the games they put out had horses, and I was just QA. I was merely lowly QA at the time, so I
Mhm.
just bugged the crap out of it, and I would write bugs to the devs all the time, and was just like,
Mhm.
please fix this, please fix this. This looks awful. No one likes
Right.
this. This horse looks like a monster creature. It doesn't look like a horse at all. Like, please, like,
Mhm.
do something better. And they're like, just waving it off every single time. And I was bugging it. I worked at that studio for like 3 years, and I probably a
Mhm.
good 2.5 of those years was me bugging this one issue over and over. And
Mhm.
sure enough, the game was released, and everybody was like, "Oh, look at these!" Even non-horse people were like, "What are these horses? Ugh, like they're just." I was like, "I told you, I told you, I told you, I told you," and
Right.
they didn't want to hear it even then. And I was just like, "Fine,
Mhm.
keep your ugly horses. I'm out of here."
Right. Yeah, they don't know that horse people zero. Well, if anything looks, super fugly, people will, jump on it. But the horse
Yeah.
people, they totally jump on everything. If it's
And
like,
I wasn't even giving them like really in like intricate critique, like, oh, I don't know, the throat latch could be a little shorter and you could like,
Mhm.
narrow them. I was just like, could you make them not look like charcoal briquettes? Like, I don't know.
Oh
Like they
wow.
just like, they had like lumpy, bumpy, thick anatomy, like kind of how people think a strong horse looks like. I'm trying to think of that one breed that, it's either like a French breed or the
Oh, a
big draft
Percheron,
breeds,
the
like
Percheron
even but
draftos,
even
or
thicker. No, like a Belgium draft, like
oh,
that,
okay,
like
yeah,
level
yeah,
of like
yeah.
big boy, right? But like
Right, yeah.
it's like they only looked at those for reference, but then didn't actually understand horse anatomy on top of it. So
Right.
they just looked like a lump of mass. Like it didn't
Mhm.
register at all. Like they just wanted something cool for
Mhm.
the armor to look cool, like a
Right.
blobbish shape for the armor.
Right.
That's all they really wanted, but
Yeah. But
it made
it's
me mad.
hard. It's just so hard,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
anatomy. I think Leonardo da Vinci said that the horse was like the second most difficult thing after doing a man. The physique
Mhm.
of the man or woman. He said man
Yeah.
in the not politically. Uh, okay, I blew that. Anyway,
Yeah.
you know
That
what I mean.
back in his day,
But
that's what
back in
he
his
said. But
day,
yeah,
mankind, which that's
right.
probably a loaded term. That
Yeah.
doesn't work anymore. But
For sure. No, but like
but
yeah, it is a definitely a different difficult thing to draw and to work with. There's definitely like certain angles and sometimes just normal angles though. I usually try like for the really off angle like behind 3/4 view a lot. I end up
right,
drawing and that is a tricky one, especially when you want to make the
mhm,
eye not look bizarre
right.
because
Well,
they do poke out of the side of their face, but
oh yeah, they do. But in a weirder way than you think, and at a different angle. A lot of people make horses that or have like human front centered eyes and they're really
Oh,
weird
oh
looking.
no, yeah, yeah. I low
No,
key want to do a short like tutorial or something where I show like, look, you can stylize horse anatomy, but you have to learn horse anatomy first. Like, here's some
mhm,
stylizations that actually work. Here's some others.
mhm.
Well, maybe I won't point out the others that don't, but I'll just draw
Right, yeah,
examples of what doesn't work or what people typically do. And we
right.
also are getting encouragement to continue our horse nerdery in the chat.
Oh,
So
okay. Oh,
just
great.
just we have like 40 more minutes and we can just fill it all with horse nerdery. So
Sweet.
go
All
for it.
right. Well, the thing is that it took me actually this last year in the pandemic of isolated and working on my own stuff that made me realize what to focus on, which is working on the working on a more horse centric portfolio. I don't know how to put
Mm-hmm.
that, but I'm just sort of rebranding myself. So I have still do a lot of mythology and fantasy and science fiction, but also just introduce my love of the horse to everyone else, and
Mm-hmm.
my experiences. I also want to share uh, education as well because I know a lot of
Yeah.
artists struggle with it and often don't know how to you know engage the anatomy, not knowing the terminology, stuff
Right.
like
They don't
that.
even know how to look it up.
Right. And on the other hand, too, we have people that are really into horses and they have limited avenues of. No, that's not where I'm going with that. Okay, we're going to cut this part out, right?
Yeah,
uh,
it's all live. Just
no,
ignore this
I
part,
was
everyone watching. No, but I
right.
kind of get what your
Ignore
point
this
is
part,
like,
everybody.
but like, you have on the other side, you have the equestrians who may or may not be artists, but were you trying to get to like maybe they'd like to be or would be interested in
Oh,
that kind of avenue or
ooh. Oh, I'm
are you?
sorry. That it got garbled on my end, so I missed your question.
Oh, no problem. I was just suggesting that maybe where you were trying to go was like, on one hand, you have artists who don't know how to draw horses, but on the other hand, you might have horse people who don't draw, who may know
Right.
horses and horse anatomy really well, but they just
Mm-hmm.
don't, they don't have the inclination to draw, but they might want to. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to
Right.
maybe help those people.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. And somehow meet everything in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have artists that know how to engage with horse people, and then you have the horse people and horse fans.
Right.
Know how to how to
Talk
do art
horse.
or talk horse. Yeah.
Or yeah, talk horse and talk art. Yeah, you can blend the two together.
Right. Exactly. I also think there should be a thing like how sports has sports fans. There
Mm-hmm.
needs to be horse fans in that
Right.
same kind of there needs to be that same kind of thing because
That
if
hype.
you go to a yeah, because if you go to a real horse show, a lot of the bleachers are empty.
Right.
They're not packed unless it's like a
And this is
rodeo or something
pre-COVID
like
too.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want to see what COVID what COVID looks
COVID did
like,
not destroy anything with the horse
horse
attendance. That was just that's just been the way it has been. Yeah.
right, yeah, and that's some of it due to the classes because some of them are very technical and only horse
Right.
people can get into it. I mean, I love Western Trail as much as anybody, but man, if you just get tired of watching a horse go over poles
Right.
and very slowly, that's what it looks
Yeah.
like to the layman.
Right.
But I think there's something missing though, because I mean, when football is there's a lot of waiting and a lot of lag time in
Yeah.
between plays, so I don't think that's entirely the problem. I think it's
No,
just
I agree.
we just somehow need to make horses more accessible for
Yeah.
people and the horse
Yeah.
world more accessible for people. And I'm not sure the real horse world has thought about that or not.
I agree. And the thing I find frustrating for myself is I haven't been able to ride in a couple of years due to life circumstances. But when I get back into it, one of the sports that I found before I stopped riding that I'm absolutely in love with, and I if I could, I want to get to the highest level I can at it,
Mm-hmm.
which they call the World Cup, but it's called polo cross. And
Mm-hmm.
it if you don't, I mean, I was riding for 5-6 years before I even heard of it. And
Mm-hmm.
once I found it, I was like, oh my God, I love this thing. But then even I basically saw every video online there was to see on it, which is showing you how tiny this is, because you can't say the same for any sport. It's like saying
Mm-hmm.
someone saying they've seen every basketball game. But like I've really, scoured the internet for polocross stuff, and I've basically come to the end of the internet on it. And
Mm-hmm.
it is exactly what you're talking about, in the sense that it is a very attainable game for people who don't know horses. It is super exciting to watch. The horses clash into each other. There's
Mm-hmm.
people with the now I'm just blanking on the name of the
Mm-hmm.
pole thing that we use, the racket. Thank you, brain. But yeah, there's people throwing rackets at each other, catching balls midair, like jumping up out of their saddle to catch it, and
Mm-hmm.
at a full gallop, scooping it up off the ground. That's super exciting stuff to look and watch live. And the
Mm-hmm.
matches are only like 7 minutes long or so, and there's a
Yeah.
little bit of wait in between. But that's like, just like you were saying with the football play, that's about the same, even longer, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and full of action, and you can there's two different sides, and you can easily tell like who's on what side due to
Mm-hmm.
the different team colors and everything. And yet, yeah, you look at the stands and it's all just the friends and family of the actual players on. Could you imagine a football team,
Mm-hmm.
how sad it would be if only like that person's parents and brother and sister were there out there watching them, and that was it? That
Yeah.
was it. But that's what it is for this sport. And
Yeah.
there is like a World Cup that, oh my God, you won't believe it. I don't know how much you're into it at all, but the World Cup, like, you don't even
Mm-hmm.
win money. You just win a bridle.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kid you not. Like, you just
Uh-huh.
get a bridle, or not even a bridle, more like a halter or a saddle
Mm-hmm.
pad. You won
Yeah.
the World Cup in a sport, and you got a saddle pad that costs like
Oh
the
man.
person $15 to,
Their
to
mom
make a custom.
embroidered it.
Yeah. The mom
Yeah.
of the place that was hosting it made it like on their
Right.
machine, on their sewing machine. It just says World Cup champion in the year.
Mm-hmm. And everybody
But
fights tooth and nail for it. Yeah.
yeah, they do. And the thing I like about it too is that unlike polo itself, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
like where it got its name, of course, is like an Australian
Mm-hmm.
based sport. So it's
Right.
very laid back, very family focused. And I don't want that
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it to change. I don't want it to get
Right.
hoity toity like polo is. In fact, they call it the
Mm-hmm.
king of one horse sports, because you only need one horse to play, as opposed to a string of ponies that you need for polo.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's very accessible, and it's just, at the same time, I am a super, as you can hear, as anybody watching can hear, I'm a super fan of this thing. And for my local area, I would have to drive a solid hour one way just to be able to even see a team that does regularly play on the world, at the world level, World Cup level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's it. Like, I even, this is bonkers, and I'm not trying to
Mm-hmm.
steal the show
No,
here,
no,
but
no, no, no.
I
I
tried
want to hear
to
all about it.
I
I
tried
actually
to
never heard of polo cross, so I haven't.
it's awesome. I'll show you
Mm-hmm.
like a 2-minute video and you'll get hooked. There is a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of places. I think there is a Austin chapter. So
Huh.
you don't have a horse, right?
No, but
Okay.
I know I have a friend with a horse that might touch my
Okay. Well,
cart.
that's all you need. Yeah, you do need to train the horse used
Mm-hmm.
to the things that you need to be able to get used to it in the sport.
Right.
But I've trained 6 or 7 horses to be okay with it, and they're all
Mm-hmm.
different manner of horses, and it only takes
Right.
like a month or two for them to get super solid at it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so uh, I tried to start a local chapter in my area. I live in a capital, like basically the Raleigh area of North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't get, like, for each team that's 6 people, I couldn't get 6 people
Mm-hmm.
to want to join the team, and I was just like, why?
Right.
It's just, it's so difficult to, and I tried for like 2 years. You know me, it's like
Oh man.
I'll keep trying and trying and trying, and
Mhm.
I, after 2 years, I was like, fine, I don't have a horse. This is beyond my ability to really like single-handedly make this happen. So I had to
Right.
give up. But
Mhm.
yeah, getting back into horses, that is the thing I want to do the most, and it's going to be a challenge, and I already know that
Okay.
going into it. But
Yeah.
it, it's, there's so much cool stuff with horses, but like
Mhm.
even outside spectators would love to see, but like you said, it
Mhm.
just, it feels so unattainable for the average person.
Right. Yeah. Well, they are expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have to have land. You know, you have to have
Hmm.
land for them and all that. So that I'm sure is a huge obstacle.
Yeah.
And I don't. Yeah, I don't know how to. I don't know how to fix that.
Well,
I don't have
even,
real horses. I have the models. You know.
yeah, yeah. Well, I even just observers though, like not everybody wants to play football. No one
Mm,
wants to be on the field. Well, I won't say no
mm,
one, but like you know, your average fan doesn't want to actually be out on the field playing, but
mhm.
they're still really into it and they still find
Right.
it really exciting. And
Mhm.
just like, where is that for the horses? In fact, they're talking about eliminating all of the horse sports from the Olympics just due to a lack of
What?
interest. Yeah,
What? There's a lack of
yeah,
interest?
I know.
I
I
haven't
don't,
heard
I
that.
don't,
And usually
yeah,
I've got a dressage friend who would be like the first one to tell me that stuff like
they
that.
were,
So
it was
they're lying
murmurings. It
down.
was like,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
they were talking about it. So I don't think it actually
Mhm.
went through, but it, like in
Yeah.
Beijing, they were talking about it's really expensive. We have to get all this special arena set up for them. And then we just don't have the
Mhm.
level of fan watching these events
Mhm.
that, you know, so it's just, it's like really frustrating for me to even hear that they were just even talking
Mhm.
about that. And I was just like,
Yeah.
come on, people, show up. This is a cool thing.
Right. Exactly. So I guess we need to start making some art.
Yeah, exactly. We need, I'm fired up about this. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
Let's get it on, get
Mhm.
the whole entire horse fire going and make, I don't
Mhm.
know if we can make being horse girl cool, but we
Mhm.
could try.
Yeah. And if we can somehow get get the guys in as well. I mean,
That is, and I write English
mhm.
primarily, and that
Mhm.
is a an, I don't want to say issue exactly, because I do like to see like feminine, you know, driven
Yeah, exactly.
driven things out there, and people of all genders and
Right.
everything being able to participate in something. And I was going
Mhm.
to actually say that the equine sports are kind of the great equalizers, because
Mhm.
you can, I think I've seen Olympians in their 60s and 70s competing. So
Yeah.
it's not a, you know, typically what, gymnasts at 21 their career's over or
Mhm.
something. It's not something like that where uh oh, your prime is in when you're still a child. So
Right.
I like seeing that it's a sport that can be, it needs to be more inclusive, but it can be super inclusive. And really, if, I mean, they have the Paralympics, so there's so many different
Yeah.
aspects that you can join into it. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I've seen that too. In my most of the barns I ride, it's like, oh, English isn't
Oh, yes.
manly enough or something,
Okay.
and
Oh,
it's just like,
I thought maybe in the further north, the less that stigma is because in the South, it's
maybe,
boys ride Western and girls ride
right?
English, which is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's
If you
just
go,
silly.
yeah,
And it's even weird too, because when you look at the top Olympian levels for the English stuff, jumping and dressage and everything, all the guys are there, and you're like, okay, so you didn't start here, you didn't start at the top. Like,
right.
where were you for the past however many years it took you to get to this point? Like,
Hmm.
so it's still weirdly a boys' club at the very upper echelons, which I
Hmm.
don't love seeing, because when you
Yeah,
look at like the ground level, your everyday barn that you go take, $30-$40 lessons at, it's full of women, and it's like,
yeah,
where, like, not to say that every single person who enters the horse world needs to compete, but
right.
it's still kind of weird how you can see that weird dichotomy there.
Hmm. Yeah, it's suspicious. I mean, I didn't question it, growing up because it just, oh, that's
Hmm.
just how things
It's
are.
just normal, and you didn't even think about it. It was weird. Yeah,
And now I'm like, no, that's problematic. There's something
that's
going
weird.
on there. Yeah, we
It's
need to
not
look into
good.
that.
Right, right. But to wrap it back up into art, you mentioned that
Hmm.
you are getting into the painting models game, which I've seen for many years now, and I love your figures.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to do a quick explanation for our viewers who have no idea what we might be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But since I couldn't have horses, I started collecting Breyer horses, which is they're model horses. And then I discovered that there's a whole. I grew up in a hobby where it's like the scale. It's a scale miniature type of hobby, like model trains, the dolls. Any actually it's more of a scale miniature, so like dollhouse, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, where you're recreating, uh, you know, recreating things in miniature. So what a lot of horse collectors do is that they have shows that are based on real horse shows, and we create setups that are basically dioramas that include miniature tack and
Oh.
obstacles and all sorts of things. You find out a lot of neat stuff, and you have to know the rules of each discipline that you're representing as well, because you're
Mm-hmm.
judged on that.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so it can be quite educational because you sit there and you go, oh, you uh, see a setup of somebody doing the Japanese archery, horseback archery.
Ah, yes, I've
Yeah,
also into mounted archery, so that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and the Persian archery. I think it's hot right now in the model horse world. There's
Oh,
actually a couple of
I'll have to
people
look
who
into
do
that.
setups of that, but they do the dolls, the riders, the whole deal, and
Mm-hmm.
making the jumps, backgrounds, just full scenes. They also customize the models. There's like two divisions. We have a halter
Yeah,
class, which
I've
is
seen a little bit of that. Yeah.
yeah, where they judge with where they judge. I know you judge appropriate on breed, how it represents its
Mm-hmm.
breed and its type. And there's customized classes, which are uh, okay, let me start. There's original finish classes, and those are like out of the box sprayers
Right.
or what have you. Not just sprayers, you can use other models, but they're the most common in the U.S. Overseas, it's the Schley.
Oh, okay.
I think that's how you pronounce it. The German horses that
I'll
are
have to take your
made
word
out of
for it
that.
because
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, if you go into a craft store, they're the ones that are you them see the most off of. They're made out of
Okay.
that rubbery plastic. But
Ah, okay.
yeah, and then the division that I like is the custom division, which is where you
Mm-hmm.
take a horse and you basically kind of kit bash it, and you can just repaint it. You can take a torch to it and reposition it to make a different position, or
Mm-hmm.
change it entirely. And that's what I really get into. And I grew up with that, and the hobby, that's what we call it, is we just call it the hobby, which is weird to me because it's like we're talking about it like the swingers or the the lifestyle. We're calling it
Right.
the hobby.
We all know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I know. I can't wait. I want to get those two people in the room and see what happens. But and they're like, "What? What are you into?"
What? What? We are not talking about
But
the same thing.
yeah, exactly. But in the hobby has grown. It started roughly in the '60s, and then I joined in the '80s, and we got we were basically we got older, and we got more money, and we got more into it and had more resources,
Hmm.
and artists started releasing their own models. They started doing resin casts, and so that blew up. And
Yeah.
so there's a now three or four divisions now to handle that, because you have the custom models, and then you have the artist resins.
Right. And that includes like fantasy stuff because I've seen altars where they have like
Mm-hmm.
wings or they're
Mm-hmm.
unicorns or they turned it from an Arabian to like add feathering and just all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
non-breed characteristics or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that was a really contentious thing growing up, because they didn't allow fantasy models for a long time because there's no breed
Mm,
standards for a unicorn. You know?
right. Right.
But then once more and more art started showing up, and more fans of fantasy models came forward, they started judging workmanship. So
Okay.
that's also that's a different division.
Mhm.
I keep mentioning divisions, but there's a in Texas and some other shows, they'll do a double judge system where your horse is basically entered in two divisions at the same time, and there's two judges,
Okay.
and
Uh-huh.
one person judges workmanship, and the other person judges, breed, breed type, and
Mhm.
conformation and anatomy.
Okay.
So that way you can have a horse that's not necessarily in show shape, like the
Right.
perfect halter horse,
Right.
versus a perfect representation of of an old brood mare, in the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Your
with
fancy
fantasy,
lawn ornament.
right, exactly. And with the fantasy models, people could go hog wild, and judge it on workmanship, because you can judge
Mm,
craftsmanship.
right.
There's no breed, we can't do that, but we can, do the workmanship. And that's when that those gates were opened, people have really taken off, and there's some really fantastic stuff out there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds great. I'm interested, super interested in hearing about the Persian archery because that's actually going to be a big part of my comic. So it takes place
Oh,
in
awesome.
ancient Persia. So,
Oh, okay.
um, yeah, so it's like me in a past life situation, and one of the things that the main character picks up is archery. So
Hmm.
I'm definitely
Oh,
interested.
great. Well, we'll get together later and share pics.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I'm interested in is like ancient tack, which I don't know if there's a
Hmm.
category of that, but it's very difficult just as someone who's interested
Hmm.
in it, seeing depictions of it and trying to research
Hmm.
it. It's very difficult to find, especially
Oh,
from
yeah.
thousands of years ago. It's easier to find like military tack from the 1930s or something, but
Hmm.
it's a different thing altogether to try to find Achaemenid Empire.
Oh,
What
yeah.
kind of bits do they use back there? And it's like,
Hmm.
did they even have shoeing back then? I don't.
Right.
These are answers
Yeah.
to questions that they don't have. But
Oh, I love researching that stuff, though.
mm-hmm.
We do have well, regalia. We have regalia classes. We don't call
Mm-hmm.
them costume,
Yeah.
and except for Arabian costume, because
Right.
that's there's nothing. That's a true American thing. If anybody ever sees an Arabian costume class,
Mm-hmm.
that's not how horses over there go. I mean, that's like a Hollywood. It's like a
Yeah.
Hollywood, a Latin version.
It's like a Western show American version of that. Yeah.
Right. So the
It's very
parade saddle.
flashy.
Yeah, it's like when you
Yeah.
see the
Yeah.
Lone Ranger in a parade saddle running across the thing.
Yeah,
You're
that's
sitting
not what
there.
they typically go wrangling cattle in. That's not the saddle they
Right.
use. It's not their first choice.
Yeah. I always love that in the movie. So some guy in this saddle that probably weighs as much as an elephant, and the horse is like
Yeah.
running across,
Ugh.
right.
The saddle is so heavy.
You're right. But yeah, we have classes that show off various, you know, various not period pieces, as well
Mm-hmm.
as modern, oversee other countries, other horse cultures, being
Yeah,
represented.
for sure.
And yeah, it is difficult. I'll tell you what, though, I scored because I was I was I'm a big fan of the Jericho painting with the charging
Mm-hmm.
hussar.
Yeah.
I think most people would recognize it if they saw it. But it's the horse, turning, and there's like
Yeah.
a guy with a sword, and he's got like a leopard skin saddle pad that looks pretty badass.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a girl in Poland that posted her local museum the tack set for it,
Oh,
and she had like
wow.
multiple views of it, and I was just went, you know.
That is so cool.
Can you go back and when I make this set, because I'm going to try to make it in miniature, could you
Right.
give me some more photos? And she got really
Yeah.
excited that I was interested, and that was a great hookup. Because
Oh,
if
that
you
is
ever
so cool.
Yeah, because if you ever look at that bridle on the horse, because it's a cavalry bridle, and if you ever look at
Mm-hmm.
cavalry bridles, they have that under halter deal. But back then, there was like a big tassel that was supposed to block
Mm.
the sword. What it was supposed to help block the sword
Oh, okay.
when the enemy, attempted to go for the horse's throat. And
Mm-hmm.
then you had the halter, because in case the bridle got severed, that you'd have
Right.
another way to control it. I mean, it's just like tons of just stuff on their head, and
Yeah.
to a layman, I'm sure it just looks like I was a layman. I mean, when I was little and looked at that, I was like, that is a mess. I mean, I can see it now, but that's only after,
Yeah.
that's only after making bridles, and
Right.
for the
Right.
hobby, and then working with real bridles.
And when you my pet peeve is in fantasy art when they do tack and they've not done the artist has done zero research. I have two pet
Right.
peeves. One is archery and one is horse tack and
Hmm.
horse anatomy in
Yeah.
general. But the tack where like the headband is in front of the ears
Oh.
and that's it. So it's like the jaw and so it's like there's nothing stopping. Like the ears stop the bridle from falling off. Just if you're watching, we're
Right.
not. I'm not meaning to laugh at you, but it's
Hmm.
kind of like it's like dressing a person up in a tube with no like on a string being body and then
Right.
expecting it to stay on like it wouldn't work like there's
Right.
people make fun of like the weird shirt anatomy people try to give women and stuff, but like
Hmm.
it's along those lines. Like I get why people do it because the tack is very confusing, and
Hmm.
there's times when I forget buckles and stuff when I'm trying to draw it, and I simplify it myself and everything. But yeah, it's a lot, and I get it, but it still
Hmm.
sometimes makes me laugh when
Yeah.
people are just holding the reins like that's actually more correct. Like all the weird manner in which they hold the reins,
Oh, they usually try to do
like
dramatic stuff, so they're
this or
doing
I
like
don't.
this. So
Yeah,
they're like
yeah,
that, and you're like, you
right.
know,
And
your
it's just
horse is
like,
going straight up.
yeah, it doesn't
Right.
really work like that. Okay. But and I don't want to give the impression that that I'm being snarky about it or anything, but it is funny to me that I've had on numerous occasions people say, oh, I don't want to show you my horse thing because I'm afraid you'll be mad at me. And I'm like, when have I ever just hauled off and like screamed at someone for like anatomy that wasn't
Right.
incorrect? I'll be very gentle and be as nice,
Hmm.
and obviously like I work with the person the level they're at. If they're really into horses, then I'll be like, oh,
Hmm.
you might want to make the fetlock joint is too big. Go ahead and limit. I'll
Right.
use the words that they'll be familiar with.
Right.
If they are just like looking for a very general critique, I'd just be like, oh, the head's a little too small. Make the head a
Right.
little bigger. It's just
Hmm.
I work with the person, but it's funny how my horse enthusiasm has come out to the point where it actually intimidates people from actually wanting to seek out my help on it, and it's just like that's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to go for, but I don't know how
That's
to combat that really.
that's the opposite, because usually people come to me going, "You know horses? What's this?" You know.
Yeah, and as you can tell, I'm super like unapproachable, difficult to work with, hard
Yeah.
to talk to,
Yeah.
so I don't
Yeah.
really get kind of where this kind of mentality is. It's like I love all horses and I love the try. So it's
Yeah.
for me, if I have any possibility making any improvements
Mhm.
or suggestions, I'm
Yeah.
excited about that. I don't want to downplay or
Right.
discourage
Well,
anyone.
well, I think people need to understand that when horse, well, I don't know, there's different types of horse people, but most people,
Yeah.
like you and I, artists, horse people that are also artists, is that when we see gaffes like that, it's like seeing, a mistake in a movie where, like the Starbucks
Yeah.
cup in the middle of Game of
Right.
Thrones. It's just like,
Right.
okay, yeah, that happened. That was a mistake, but
Yeah.
it's funny, but we're not like really ragging on you for it. I
No.
mean, if I had to
No.
do ship rigging, for example, if I had to paint a galleon,
Oh,
let's paint a
if I had to
galleon,
paint a car, I'd be like, did I get all
right?
four wheels? Like,
Right.
yeah.
I'm a little better with that, but yeah, cars are intimidating. Yeah,
And
cars can be pretty
bikes.
intimidating.
That's another challenge I love online is people drawing bikes from memory because
Oh,
I couldn't do any better. I don't know. Got two
yeah,
wheels on there, some
yeah,
handlebars, and we're all
hmm
set. Oh, a saddle, yeah, sure.
yeah, hmm
But yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. The point really being is like use reference, and even though it is difficult to try to like go into the horse world and understand some of these things,
hmm
um, that is where someone like us could help. Like, hey, I'm trying to depict this. I have no idea where to even start, and we could be like,
right,
oh, check out medieval tack because they may not even know the
right,
word tack, right? But
right,
we could
exactly,
we could use a little bit of jargon to help aid the Google search. We are willing
right,
and able to do that for people for
hmm
sure.
right,
But yeah, so
yeah, it's
hopefully people aren't too intimidated to at least
right,
try. We we
right.
we, we like rewarding the try because I'd rather see more horses in fantasy, and I don't
hmm
know if I've ever seen horses in sci-fi art. So if that's something else that you'd be
hmm
interested in getting into, that'd be cool.
Yeah. See, there's like some cartoons I remember, like Brave Star, and of course there's a Vampire Hunter D with that robot horse that was
Okay,
pretty awesome. Or it was like a
nice.
android horse. There's like little bits and pieces here and there. It's kind of hard to
Mm-hmm.
explain them when you have a ship, having
Yeah, yeah,
10 vehicles.
right,
Mhm.
exactly.
But yeah, this is where we need to, this is where creativity comes in. We need to work that back in.
Exactly. Well, we'll figure out a way for it to make
Mhm,
sense.
mhm.
As far as your journey has gone, are there any particular like difficulties that you've had to face, or just kind of challenges in general, maybe besides horse anatomy?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Uh, Mostly just getting confident in finding out what I want to do for real,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and getting confident in doing it. And then after that, it's just a matter of, since I'm since again I'm rebranding, I'm having to rethink and redo my social media, and I started a Patreon, and I'm going to be
Mm.
doing kind of a soft rollout.
Yeah.
Before, I had a friend that did that, and she just slowly, had created a Patreon and just let it build. I thought you had to
Mm-hmm.
treat it more like a, grand opening and have everything,
Right.
everything,
Right. Like a
tons
big
of stuff
Kickstarter
and
launch.
right, exactly. But no, I'm doing a soft launch, and
Okay.
so we'll see how that goes.
That's awesome.
Other than that, it's mostly battles with creating a personal schedule that's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And when your attention is kind of scattered and all over the place, when you're trying to do too much and trying to
Yeah.
appeal to too many different audiences, and that really
Yes.
can mess up your schedule, because you're like, okay, well, I need to do this. Okay, well, I need to do this instead, or I need to do this, and then you have
Right.
to figure out, where to put that in your day.
Exactly. No, I
Mhm.
struggle with the same exact thing. I totally understand.
Yeah, I'm a kind of a geek about schedules. I always like to talk to people about, okay, how much sleep do you get, from when you wake up? And people look at me like I'm nuts.
No, I keep being in search for the perfect schedule that is a balance of kind of like relaxation and work
Mhm.
and getting everything done in the day that I need to. And
Yeah,
I don't know that I've hit that balance. I probably lean a little too much on the relaxation side because I
right.
don't have like a clear, super clear, like very laser focus idea of what I want to do, because any idea
Mhm.
I think of, I'm like, it's got a 50-50 chance of seeing the
Mhm.
results I want. So it's hard to feel like to go full throttle on an idea that you're not sure
Mhm.
how it's going to end up turning out.
Mhm.
That's
What was
that's been my
funny?
struggle.
What was funny when is last year when last year happened.
Yeah.
I don't need to explain it.
Say no
uh,
more.
I spent a lot of time rededicating reallocating time to the model course hobby because I'd kind of pushed it aside as, okay, I need to do my serious art stuff, and this is
Right.
all here. Uh, when I went back into it, I started. I mean, normally my work when I work on something, anything, it's like one thing at a time, laser focused, all in, raw.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but last year I started working on. I said, okay, Friday's a horse day. I'm just going to work on horses, and I didn't want to work on. I didn't. I wanted to try doing several at once instead of just doing
Oh,
one at a
okay.
time.
Yeah.
And I became so much more productive because I could just jump from one to another. I had like definite ideas of which piece went where it was supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to accomplish a lot more. I mean, before I went from like doing one customized model, every 6 months to,
Right.
three or four.
Oh, wow.
And I keep speeding up as because of that. And I have, different
Right.
queues. I also have dedicated workstations now too, because
Mm-hmm.
again, with COVID, stuck at home, you start looking at your house and you go, I could use this for da, 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 da. And I made a workshop and
Oh,
dedicated
nice.
chopping and sculpting station outside with all the tools.
Oh,
And then I have,
good.
of course, dedicated areas in the studio.
Right.
Mhm. But I had to integrate the
No,
studio because I want to do some as part of the do some videos, more videos. I haven't even had one yet, but but I want to
the
do
idea is
videos.
there. You're
Yeah,
thinking
the
about
idea is
it.
there. Yeah, I want to do videos, tutorials of both in the hobby and with art, and
And you thinking
having
about
everything camera ready and
awesome.
accessible to me. To the camera, it was important.
Is that going to be on your Patreon?
The Yes.
Like the tutorials and videos and everything?
Mhm. Yeah,
Awesome.
I haven't worked out what tier, but
Yeah.
they will definitely be up there.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's a tier that I would reserve
Mhm.
for, because of the amount of work and everything.
Mhm.
Definitely put it up there, because I feel like that's something worth,
Mhm.
you know, charging for, because the
Oh,
amount of effort, like you said, is
mhm.
is it's hard to even start. So to
Yeah.
get in
Mhm.
there, it's definitely, and you'll find. I mean, you know where to look for sure. I'm as far as the audience of trying to, and you know your audience too. That is also super helpful.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
intersection between people who want to draw horses and art horse people who want to draw, like that
Mhm.
that seems like the perfect intersection for all of that.
Yeah. I think there's room for the hobby as well
Mm-hmm.
because of just because I noticed that my artist friends, the sketch group, they actually got interested in and could appreciate the craftsmanship
Yeah.
and the work. I mean,
Yeah.
they were interested in it, which surprised me because usually it's like this. I grew up with this dirty secret, and then people. I found this out because I was at Luxcon, and I was talking to an
Mm-hmm.
artist, and she asked me about a horse in her painting, and I went, and I it was posed exactly like a sculpture of a hobby artist named Sarah Rose did. It was
Mm-hmm.
and the it was in the same position, but hers had problems. And I was like, okay, I went up on my phone and I brought up the sculpture. It says, okay, this is a model horse, and oh yeah, I'm in the model horse, and the 5 minute
Yeah.
embarrassed, oh, do this thing, and
Right.
but I showed the picture to her, and she's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's really helpful, and oh, that's kind of cool, and blah blah blah, And I was like, oh, okay, it's not high school anymore. Good.
Right. Right.
People actually
The things that make you weird or cool when you're an adult, once you find,
right,
it's because you discard all the people who don't think that it's cool. Like it's,
right,
you're in with
hmm
your people and your crowd, and it's so
right.
much better.
But getting back to the workflow thing with the models, I'm starting to try to implement that type of work on different things with my artwork as well, and
Mm-hmm.
see if I become more productive. I mean, I still I can't just sit down and go, oh, I'm going to do 50 pieces. No, but I don't really do that with the models either. I go, okay, this one's
Right.
going to be a this is going to be a this is going to be a this. So with the art, I'm approaching it as well. I'm going to do a lot of thumbnails and look at old thumbnails and do random ideas. And if something looks like a painting, pull it out, do some roughs,
Yeah.
and then work another day, pick another thumbnail or another rough, or work on a painting, that kind of thing. I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes any sense, but it's
Well, it's a process. So as long as it
yeah.
works for you, it does. I mean,
Mhm,
we'll take what we can, like all the
mhm.
suggestions we can. I think
Right.
I'm always interested in hearing people's process and
hmm
how they make it work for them, and see
hmm
if like that also could work for me. So
Right.
it sounds like for you, it's a kind of a give and take. Like I'm trying this, I'll see how it goes, and then if it doesn't work, then I'll move on to something else. So
Right. Having that flexibility, as
right,
well as it just seems more productive. You don't have more irons in the fire.
yeah.
It's just dedicated irons. I mean, it's a very focused irons in the fire.
Right. It's
It's
not
not,
random. It's not like, oh, I did a
yeah,
squiggle on this page and now next page squiggle. Like it's not quite there,
right.
but yeah, just a little bit more
hmm
focused of a focused
hmm
chaos, if you will.
Right. Focus chaos, as opposed to just extreme laser focus. Now, I still do
Right.
extreme laser focus with commissions because I take
Mm-hmm.
my time with them very seriously.
Yeah.
So everything else is, is a mad scientist workshop. But when it comes to client work, it's like, okay, dedicated time. We're doing this,
Yes.
and
Right.
and this will happen, and we have milestones. But as far
Yeah.
as
And it's kind
personal
of
work,
easy because
hmm
they have a prompt, so it's like you follow the
hmm
prompt. When it's yourself and your own ideas, then there's more
hmm
flexibility.
right, almost too much. That's
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
think that's the real problem.
It's that sandbox syndrome where you have the whole world and all you can think to do is nothing. So
Mhm. Yeah, the only thing I worry about is my comic because I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it, with the
mm-hmm.
hieratic, the Egyptian god comics, because
Right.
it's doesn't really fit into the new well, it doesn't really it it kind of fits, but not really, or I'm not sure where it fits is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
With stuff
And
like that. Oh,
mhm.
you go ahead.
Oh, I've got two more issues planned, but I need to figure out where I want to go with it and just how to
Mm-hmm.
integrate it, how to kind of integrate it back because
Right.
I put a lot of work into it to just go and a lot of press and there's a small fan base behind it
Yeah.
that I don't
Yeah.
want to disappoint. I think there's still more to say,
For
especially
sure.
since
Yeah.
I want to cover the COVID years, having the having Anubis, where I just want to draw Anubis wearing a mask. I think that would be hilarious. Everybody going, "Why are you wearing that?"
Or Isis with the medicine mask that
Oh
Laura,
yeah,
the plague
yeah,
mask.
yeah.
As far as my experience goes for that, there's also something to be said for completely branching off and making it its own thing. That's what I've done with Colorisma, is that I don't really integrate it in with my like Char Reed art stuff. I have actually moved it apart and separate. Now it does make it harder to kind of tackle because it is its own thing, with its own different separate marketing. So it makes it difficult, but at the same time, it makes it easier to brand because it is its own thing. So
Right.
There's pros and cons to it. It depends on your schedule and how you can make it integrate it into your schedule more than integrate it all to be kind of in it on the same site or whatnot. But
that makes perfect sense.
Something to think about anyway.
It also would make more sense for the news. I'm about to phase out. I was about to phase out my newsletter, but a lot of my comic folks are on there, and I don't like that. I don't want to drop them. So what I could do is just basically the only active audience in the newsletters are the comics folks. I think the problem
so just dedicate it.
Yeah, because the newsletter I think was too broad. Otherwise, it was just like comics. So here's some art. Here's this. Here's that. People are like, whatever.
Right.
When's
too
the
many
next comic
options
coming out.
Yeah, give people too many options and they just pick nothing. they get overwhelmed. They're too busy. So it makes sense. As far as your website and your Patreon goes, where can people find you?
Let's see.
Online?
I'm at aliciavogel.com, and my Patreon. Hang on a minute.
I think I have it written down as A Vogel. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Let's see, double check that. Yep, A Vogel. Yeah.
Perfect. So that'll be patreon.com/avogel.
Right.
And we'll have all that down in the description for you too.
Somewhere.
Once I wrap up. Yeah, exactly. Just click the link. And if there's not a link there, you yell at me.
Right.
Get it down there. But yeah, I definitely want people to find you online. I've been really excited seeing all your updates lately of your model horses, and I am super looking forward to your videos once you get those out. If you do little short Instagram videos, I'm super interested in seeing those.
Awesome, good to know. I'll keep that in mind.
Well, thank you for joining me today and chatting and discussing all of the horse nerdery that I could fit into an hour. I don't have a ton of people I can go full horse nerd with, so I appreciate you going toe to toe with me and being able to catch up.
Anytime.
All righty, everyone. Thank you for watching another episode of Colorisma. I'll be back next week, probably just by myself, but I might be able to get maybe some more interviews down the line. So we'll see. I appreciate everyone watching. So take care. Have a good one, and bye.